The wheelchair made no sound on the polished floor. General Alan Strickland rolled himself down the long hallway like he had done every morning for 15 years. His shoulders were strong. His back was straight. His uniform was perfect, every button shining, every crease sharp as a knife edge. But his legs did not move. Everyone on the base knew the story. 15 years ago, during a mission overseas, an explosion had torn through his vehicle. The general survived. His legs did not. Well, they were still there, attached to his body, but they might as well have been made of stone. The doctor said the nerves were damaged beyond repair. They said he would never walk again. They said it with sad eyes and gentle voices. The way people talk when they think you need to accept something terrible. The general accepted it. He had to. What choice did he have? He learned to live in the chair. He learned to command from the chair. He learned to inspect troops, review reports, and lead meetings from the chair. The soldiers respected him. Maybe they respected him even more because he never complained, never showed weakness, never asked for pity. But late at night, when everyone else was asleep, the general would sit by his window and stare at his legs. Sometimes he would try to wiggle his toes. Sometimes he would imagine standing up, walking across the room, feeling the ground solid beneath his feet. And sometimes, just sometimes, he thought he felt a tiny flicker deep inside his legs, like a whisper of something still alive. He never told anyone about that flicker. It was probably just his imagination anyway. Then Private Nyla Carter arrived. She came on a Tuesday morning, part of a new group of soldiers assigned to the base. The general rolled out to the field to welcome them, like he always did. He gave a speech about honor, duty, and sacrifice. The new soldiers stood at attention, listening carefully. Private Carter stood in the third row. She was young, maybe 22, with short black hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She listened to every word the general said. But unlike the others, she did not look at his face. She looked at his legs. The general noticed. He always noticed. After the speech, the soldiers scattered to their assignments. Private Carter walked straight toward the general. Her steps were confident but respectful. She stopped exactly 3 feet away and saluted. "General Strickland, sir. Permission to speak, sir." The general returned the salute. "Granted, Private." "Sir, I reviewed your medical file. With respect, sir, I believe the doctors were wrong." The general's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair. Around them, a few soldiers turned to look. No one spoke to the general about his legs. No one. It was an unspoken rule. "Private Carter," the general said, his voice cold and controlled, "my medical condition is not up for discussion. You are dismissed." But Private Carter did not move. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She held it out to him. "Sir, I'm a rehabilitation specialist. I studied nerve damage and muscle recovery for 4 years before I enlisted. Your file shows incomplete spinal injury, not complete severance. That means there's a pathway, sir. Weak but alive." The general stared at the paper. He did not take it. The doctors said what they saw 15 years ago, sir. But bodies change. Nerves can find new routes. Muscles can wake up if you give them a reason. Sir, I'm not saying it will be easy. I'm not saying it will be fast. But I am saying it's possible. The general's heart pounded in his chest. For 15 years, he had built a wall around that tiny flicker of hope. He had buried it deep where it could not hurt him anymore. And now this young soldier, this stranger, was trying to dig it up. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why do you care?" Private Carter looked him straight in the eye. "Because you're still fighting, sir. I can see it. And fighters deserve a chance." The general took the paper. His hands were shaking, just a little. He unfolded it and saw charts, diagrams, notes written in neat, precise handwriting. Muscle groups, nerve pathways, a step-by-step plan. "There's a gym on the east side of the base." Private Carter said, "It has the equipment we need. Parallel bars, resistance bands, a standing frame. If you give me 30 minutes a day, sir, I'll show you what your body can still do." The general looked up from the paper. "And if you're wrong?" If we try and nothing happens. Private Carter smiled, small and determined. Then at least you'll know you tried, sir. At least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering. The general was silent for a long time. Around them, the base continued its daily rhythm. Soldiers marching, baiklas rumbling, flags snapping in the wind, life moving forward, like it always did. Finally, the general folded the paper and tucked it into his uniform pocket. 0600 hours tomorrow, Private. The East Gym. Do not be late. Private Carter saluted. Yes, sir. She turned and walked away, her boots crunching on the gravel. The general watched her go. Then he rolled himself back toward his office, his mind spinning, that buried flicker of hope suddenly burning bright and terrifying inside his chest. That night, he did not sleep. He sat by his window and stared at his legs for hours. He thought about the explosion. He thought about the doctors. He thought about 15 years of rolling instead of walking, sitting instead of standing. And he thought about tomorrow, when the sun rose. The general was already dressed in his exercise clothes. He rolled himself to the East Gym. The building was old, dusty, and rarely used. Inside, the parallel bars stood like silent sentries. The standing frame waited in the corner, covered in a thin layer of dust. Private Carter was already there. She had cleaned the equipment. She had set up a mat on the floor. She had laid out resistance bands in careful rows. She turned when she heard the wheelchair. She did not smile. She did not offer pity or encouragement. She simply nodded. Ready, sir? The general took a deep breath. His hands were steady now. His jaw was set. Let's begin. And in that dusty, forgotten gym, with only the two of them as witnesses, the impossible began to unfold. Private Carter did not start with walking. She did not even start with standing. She started with something the general had not done in 15 years. She asked his legs to remember. Touch your toes, sir, she said, kneeling beside the wheelchair. Not with your hands. With your mind. Picture them. Feel them. Tell them to move. The general closed his eyes. He felt ridiculous. He was a decorated officer, a leader of soldiers, and here he was sitting in a gym trying to wiggle his toes like a child learning to count. But he tried. He focused everything he had on his right big toe. Move, move, move. Nothing happened. He tried the left foot, the ankle, the knee. Nothing. His legs sat there like dead weight, silent and stubborn. I can't, he said, opening his eyes. There's nothing there. Private Carter did not look disappointed. She pulled out a small device from her bag, something with wires and sensors. She attached the sensors to his legs, just above the knee and at the ankle. This measures electrical signals, sir, even tiny ones. The signals your brain sends down to your muscles, even if the muscles don't respond yet. She turned on the device. A small screen lit up with wavy lines, like a heartbeat monitor. Now try again, sir. Focus on your right foot. Try to lift it. The general focused. He poured every ounce of willpower into that right foot. Lift, lift, lift. The lines on the screen jumped. Just a tiny spike, barely visible. But it was there. Private Carter's eyes lit up. There, sir. You see that? Your brain is sending the signal. The pathway exists. It's weak, buried under years of silence, but it's alive. The general stared at the screen. That tiny spike. That little proof. His throat tightened. For 15 years, he had believed the connection was completely dead. But it was not dead. It was sleeping. What now? He asked, his voice rough. Now we wake it up, sir. Slowly. Carefully. Your muscles have forgotten how to listen. We're going to teach them again. For the next week, they did not try to stand. Private Carter had the general practice sending signals. Over and over. Visualize the movement. Send the command. Watch the screen. The spikes grew slightly bigger, slightly more consistent. It was exhausting work. Harder than any physical training the general had ever done. This was a battle inside his own body, a war against his own nerves. But he showed up every morning at 0600. And every morning, Private Carter was already there waiting. On the 8th day, she wheeled over the standing frame. It looked like a metal cage with padded supports. The general eyed it suspiciously. This will hold your weight, sir. The straps will keep you secure. You won't fall. I need you to trust the equipment. I trust the equipment, the general said. It's my legs I don't trust. That's why we start here, sir. Your legs don't need to hold you yet. The frame does that. But your legs need to remember what weight feels like. They need to remember pressure. Private Carter locked the wheelchair. She helped the general transfer to the standing frame, his arms doing all the work. She adjusted the straps around his chest and hips, making sure everything was secure. Then, slowly, she began to tilt the frame upward. The general's feet touched the floor. Weight pressed down through his legs for the first time in 15 years. It felt strange, foreign, like his legs belonged to someone else. But there was something else too, a deep ache, like muscles waking from a very long sleep. 30 seconds, sir, Private Carter said, setting a timer. That's all. Just let your body remember what this feels like. Those 30 seconds felt like 30 hours. The general's legs trembled. His heart raced. Sweat dripped down his face. Every instinct screamed at him that he was going to fall, even though the frame held him completely secure. But he did not fall. When the timer beeped, Private Carter lowered the frame. The general gasped for air like he had just run a marathon. How do you feel, sir? Like I just fought a war, he admitted. Private Carter smiled. You did, sir. And you won. Tomorrow we do 45 seconds. Each day they added time. 45 seconds became 1 minute. 1 minute became 2. The general's legs began to remember the feeling of bearing weight. The deep ache turned into something sharper, more awake. His muscles, dormant for so long, began sending their own signals back to his brain. Confused signals at first, like a radio trying to find the right frequency, but signals nonetheless. After 2 weeks in the standing frame, Private Carter brought out the parallel bars. Today we shift weight, sir. Left or right. The frame held you. Now your legs have to start participating. The general's stomach twisted with fear. This was different. This was asking his legs to actually do something. Private Carter helped him to the bars. He gripped them with both hands, his knuckles white. She positioned his feet shoulder-width apart. His legs shook like branches in a storm. I want you to shift your weight to your left leg, sir. Just a little. The bars will still hold most of it. Your right foot can stay on the ground. Just shift. That's all. The general took a breath. He focused on his left leg. He remembered the spike on the screen. The signal was there. The pathway was there. He shifted. For 1 heartbeat. His left leg held just a fraction more weight than his right. It was not much. Maybe 10%. Maybe less. But it was something. Again, sir. He shifted back to center. Then to the right leg. Back to center. Left again. Each shift was a tiny victory. Each shift proved the doctors wrong. Each shift rebuilt a piece of his broken belief. By the end of the session, the general was drenched in sweat. His arms ached from gripping the bars. His legs felt like they were made of fire. But he was smiling. Private Carter handed him a water bottle. Good work, sir. Tomorrow, we hold the shift for 5 seconds. The training became the center of the general's life. He woke thinking about it. He fell asleep visualizing it. During the day, sitting in meetings, reviewing reports, he would practice sending signals to his legs under the table where no one could see. And slowly, impossibly, things began to change. 3 weeks in, he held his weight on his left leg for 15 seconds. 4 weeks in, his right leg twitched when he commanded it, an actual visible movement. 5 weeks in, he stood at the parallel bars for 5 full minutes without the frame, his legs trembling but holding. Other soldiers started to notice. They would pass by the gym and peek through the windows. They saw their general, the man who had rolled in a wheelchair for 15 years, standing upright between 2 bars. Word spread through the base like wildfire, but the general did not care about the whispers. He cared about the next step, literally. On a cool morning in the 7th week, Private Carter stood at one end of the parallel bars. The general stood at the other end, gripping the bars, his legs locked and shaking. Today we take a step, sir. Just one. Lift your right foot. Move it forward 6 inches. Put it down. That's all. The general's heart hammered. This was it. This was a moment he had dreamed about, feared, hoped for, doubted for 15 years. He focused on his right foot. Lift. His brain sent the signal. His muscles, weak and uncertain, tried to obey. His right foot scraped against the floor, barely lifting an inch. It moved forward, clumsy and awkward, maybe 4 inches instead of 6. But it moved. He put it down. His legs shook so badly he thought it would give out. But it held. Private Carter's eyes were bright. Now the left, sir. The general lifted his left foot. Drag it forward. Put it down. 2 steps. He had taken 2 steps. His vision blurred. His chest felt tight. He realized, with some embarrassment, that he was crying. Private Carter walked to him and steadied his arm. Breathe, sir. Just breathe. I walked, he whispered. After 15 years, I walked. You did, sir. And tomorrow you'll do it again. And the day after that. And the day after that. The general looked down at his legs. Those traitors that had abandoned him. Those miracles that had come back. They were still shaking. They were still weak. But they were his again. And he was never giving them up. 3 months after that first morning in the dusty gym, the entire base gathered on the parade field. It was Medal of Honor Day, an annual ceremony where the general presented awards to soldiers who showed exceptional courage and service. Everyone expected the usual ceremony. The general would roll onto the field in his wheelchair. He would give his speech. He would hand out medals from his chair. The soldiers would salute. The ceremony would end. But this year, something was different. Private Carter stood in formation with the other soldiers. Her uniform was crisp, her posture perfect, but her eyes kept drifting to the side of the field, where a black curtain hung over a small raised platform. No one knew what was behind that curtain. The general had ordered it set up himself, and he had told no one why. The ceremony began. The base commander called everyone to attention. The crowd fell silent. And then, instead of the familiar sound of wheelchair wheels, there was something else. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps. The black curtain moved. General Alan Strickland stepped out from behind it. He was walking. A wave of gasps swept through the field. Soldiers froze mid-salute. Officers stared, their mouths open. Even the commander looked shocked. The general walked carefully, using a cane in his right hand. Each step was deliberate, focused. His left leg moved forward. His weight shifted. His right leg followed. Left, right, left, right. It was not smooth. It was not fast. But it was real. He walked 20 feet across the platform to the microphone. It took him almost a minute. No one spoke. No one moved. The only sound was the tap of his cane and the scrape of his boots on the wooden platform. When he reached the microphone, the general stood tall. He straightened his back. He looked out at the hundreds of faces staring at him in disbelief. At ease, he said, his voice strong and clear. The soldiers relaxed, but they did not stop staring. 15 years ago, the general began, I lost the ability to walk. The doctors told me it was permanent. They told me to accept it. And I did. I built my life around that wheelchair. I learned to lead from that wheelchair. I convinced myself that walking did not matter, as long as I could still serve. He paused. His hand tightened on the cane. But I was wrong. Walking did matter. Not because a leader needs to walk to be respected, but because giving up on something you love, something you miss, something that feels impossible, that is its own kind of defeat. And I was defeated. For 15 years, I was defeated. The general's eyes found Private Carter in the formation. She stood perfectly still, but her eyes were bright. 3 months ago, a young soldier challenged me. She told me the doctors were wrong. She told me that impossible was just a word people use when they stop trying. She told me that my body still had a pathway, weak but alive, and she offered to walk that pathway with me, step by painful step. The general set down his cane. It clattered against the platform. Soldiers leaned forward, holding their breath. Private Nyla Carter front and center. Private Carter marched out of formation. Her steps were quick and sure. She climbed onto the platform and stood at attention in front of the general. "Private Carter," the general said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You did not give me back my legs. You reminded me that I never truly lost them. You refused to accept my defeat. You saw possibility where I saw only limits. You believed when I could not believe." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a medal. It gleamed gold in the sunlight. The Medal of Exceptional Service, one of the highest honors a soldier could receive. For your skill, your dedication, your refusal to accept the impossible, and for giving a broken general his legs, his hope, I present you with this medal. The general pinned the medal to Private Carter's uniform. His hands were steady. He did not need to sit. He did not need to lean. He stood on his own 2 feet, face to face with the soldier who had changed his life. Private Carter's eyes glistened. "Sir, You don't need to say anything, Private. Just accept my gratitude and my salute." The general stepped back, and then, for the first time in 15 years, he lifted his hand in salute while standing upright on his own legs. Private Carter returned the salute, her hand sharp and proud. The entire field erupted. Soldiers cheered. Officers clapped. Some people wiped their eyes. The noise was deafening, joyful, a celebration not just of walking, but of refusing to quit, of believing in the impossible, of the stubborn resilience of the human spirit. When the noise finally died down, the general picked up his cane, but he did not lean on it. He held it loosely at his side. "I still need this cane," he told the crowd. "I still have weak days. I still have pain. This is not a miracle cure. This is hard work every single day. But I am walking, and I will keep walking. Because once you remember what possible feels like, you never want to forget again." He turned to Private Carter. "Will you walk with me, Private?" "Yes, sir. Always." Together, they walked off the platform. The general's steps were slow, but sure. Private Carter walked beside him, not helping, not hovering, just present. Just there, the soldiers parted to let them through. As they passed, every single soldier saluted, not to the rank, not to the uniform, to the courage, to the comeback, to the refusal to stay defeated. When they reached the edge of the field, away from the crowd, the general stopped. He turned to Private Carter, and his formal expression finally broke. He smiled, real and genuine. "Thank you, Nyla. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever." Private Carter smiled back. "No, sir. You gave it to yourself. I just showed you where to look." They stood there for a moment, general and private, teacher and student, 2 people who had fought a war against the impossible and won. Then the general straightened. "Same time tomorrow morning?" 0600, sir. The gym. Good. I want to work on stairs next." Private Carter laughed. "Stairs. Of course you do, sir." They walked back toward the base together. 2 figures moving forward into a future that had once seemed closed forever. Behind them, the ceremony continued. Medals were awarded. Speeches were given. But everyone on that field knew they had witnessed something rare and precious. The moment when someone decides that impossible is just another challenge waiting to be conquered. The general still used his wheelchair sometimes, on long days or when his legs were too tired. But now it was a choice, not a prison. Now, he could stand when he wanted to stand, walk when he wanted to walk. And every single step was a quiet victory over the word never. Private Carter continued her work on the base, helping other soldiers with injuries and setbacks. She never bragged about what she had done for the general. She did not need to. Her medal said it all. And when soldiers asked her how she did it, how she made the impossible possible, she always gave the same answer. "I didn't do it. He did. I just reminded him that his body was still talking. He just needed to learn how to listen." Years later, soldiers would still talk about that ceremony, about the general who walked again, about the private who refused to accept defeat, about the moment when hope became stronger than diagnosis, and stubborn belief became the bridge between broken and whole. And in that dusty gym on the east side of the base, the parallel bars still stood, waiting for the next person who needed to remember that impossible is just a starting point, not a destination. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you that impossible is just another word for not yet, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that prove the human spirit can overcome anything. Your support helps us share these powerful, true stories of courage, resilience, and a refusal to give up. Thank you for being part of this journey.